Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Razzmel, and here we are going over more Guild Wars 2 guides. So I just wanted to mention, or something I didn't mention in the previous video is that, please put feedback in the comments or anything, talking about, I want discussions going on in the comments. I want people to, kind of put their minds around those concepts. And if I'm saying anything wrong or there's something I'm missing or anything like that, please do mention it in the comments as well. Or you can even message me online or message me in game. If you have a question or you want to talk about something, discuss things, please do message me in game. I put my in-game name in the description. What is today's video going to be about? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about metas. I'm going to talk about a little bit about teamwork. I'm going to talk a little bit, also going to talk a tiny bit about class knowledge or class limits. Something that I think is important to understand. So firstly, we're going to talk about metas. Now, before you start moaning and groaning about, oh, meta is so cheesy, meta is so stupid, it's for easy players, just hold on a bit. There's a reason that meta is meta, and I want to discuss that because it's important to understand that meta is just meta, and we just have to live with that. It's in every single game we play. It doesn't matter what game you play. If it has stats, even games that don't have stats, there's still a meta game that is a subliminal meta game going on that people just need to know about. And so, what I first want to talk about is what is meta. So what really is the concept, this meta game that we all talk about and we all kind of scoff at sometimes. So when I'm talking about meta, we talk about the skills, abilities, attributes, stats, or any modifying factor that affects your character and that gives it the greatest and most productive outcome in the greatest number of situations. And I feel like that's a good description of it because it really is true. When you're playing in any game, when you're playing a character that is set up in this meta build or this meta state, it is able to accomplish a lot more in different problems more than another build or another class or another this or that. It's kind of like when you're taught in school about critical thinking and they want you to problem solve. Well, the meta build is the critical thinking, and it's solving all these problems that you're trying to figure out. And that's why meta build is so good. It does those things, and it allows a team to kind of branch out a lot more when things kind of go to the shitter sometimes, and you're just like, what the heck do we do? Well, we can rely on this because this is the meta build, or this is that. You're relying on it, and that's really what PvP is kind of. You're relying on certain things to be there for you. So for example, if you want a better description, easier to understand a description of this, I will use Ellie as a good example because there's a very drastic difference between builds in Ellie. So we have Dagger Ellie, we have Fresh Air as the two big builds currently right now. What makes one more meta than the other? Well, Fresh Air is very good at one thing. It's very good at dealing damage very quickly and very continuously. And you can just like blow up someone instantly and take out a player. That's really good. But it doesn't do much else than that. It can 1v1 pretty well against certain classes. Other ones it has a bit of trouble with. So capping, taking points away from other defending players is also kind of a 50-50 kind of chance. Dagger, on the other hand, with Celestial Amulet, set up with the 00266 or 0206 or whatever, as long as it's 66 at the bottom, that's the meta build right now. It has a lot of things going for it. It has the healing, the team support, has the Condi cleanse, it has the damage, it has the sustain, it has the ability to hold points, it can take points, it can 1v1, it can fight multiple people for a longer time than Fresh Air can. It can do a lot of things more. And then that's not even just that's not even the tip of the iceberg for Dagger Ellie. It does a lot of things that it can do in different situations. Whereas Fresh Air doesn't do that all the time. It can't do all of those things. And that's why Dagger Ellie is so powerful in team play, because it does all those things. It can solve all these problems that Fresh Air can't. So say you have you're holding the point and two people are coming at you. Say it's a warrior and a Mediguard. Well, that's a really difficult matchup for Fresh Air because Mediguard just blows them up. Mediguard just fights the Fresh Air, is like, oh, whatever, and blow you up. Heals everywhere. And Warrior's like, oh, I'm just gonna use bow and stuff. Or whatever they're doing. Fresher's like, oh shit, I only have 1 invuln and that's it, I'm dead. So there, that's the only, it can probably maybe blow up the Mediguard if it has the chance to get through those blocks and blinds. But when Dagger fighting against those two, it has a better chance. Like, the Mediguard's kind of like, oh shit, that's not really my best matchup, and not really best matchup for Warrior, because we're going to take a lot of burning damage and a lot of random damage from the Dagger Ellie, just from rolling about all over the place. And all these other things coming at it, and it has a lot of sustain, so it's going to survive for a long time. And Kanyas can't really be applied to it because it can just remove them too quickly. So holding a point for a Dagger Ellie is much easier than a Fresh Air. Now you might just go say, well, Fresh Air doesn't really do that, it just kind of runs around killing people. That's fine, because that's what it does. But if you're in a situation where you can't leave that point, Dagger Ellie would be better. And still, Dagger Ellie can roam if it wants to. I've seen it happen many times and be effective. So it can do those things. It can do what Fresh Air does, and it just can do more. So that's kind of what meta game is, or meta, you know, the meta builds or meta whatever. It can do all these things, and it can choose which ones it wants to do in that situation. So I think that's a kind of a good overall meta thing. Again, if you want to talk about it, you know, if there's anything I missed there, I mean, I don't know everything, and I have to... I talk really fast, so my mind is also going at the speed of light as I'm talking, so be sure to kind of say, Raz, you're talking nonsense, or you missed this part. So be sure to comment about that, what I said about, because meta's a big thing, and it's hard to describe everything about it. That's just kind of an overall gist of it. And so it's really, why do people look at meta and say, oh, it's meta, it's so easy? Well, that's because it is. It's easy, and it works and things like that. The unfortunate thing is that players want to go and say, oh, meta, and kind of just like point their nose up at it and say it's gross, it's disgusting. But you shouldn't. You should give it a chance and try it. And that's not to say you can't play what you want. Meta is just the first part of playing PvP. I know many people who play meta builds, and they've kind of molded them. They've kept the main part of the meta build in there, but they've kind of evolved it into little, like small things that allow them to play the way they want, and that's comfortable for them. So don't think that when you're playing meta, it's just stopping you from, you know, kind of evolving your play style, and whatever. Don't think it's holding you back, because it isn't. It's actually teaching you a lot about the class, because what it does is it's bringing out all of the intrinsic qualities of the class out. And you might say and you can, I mean, if you want to talk about overpowered or underpowered things, that's a different, video entirely. But again, that's just the gist of why meta builds are important to the game, is that it does that. It does what, it's good. It's a good thing. Metas are a good thing. Don't throw them away because they need to be there. If they weren't there, then there'd be a lot of chaos and randomness, and we don't like that. Disorder doesn't help us. We're not a gas. We're not a noble gas. We don't just float around everywhere. We have disorder everywhere. So the next thing that we can kind of move into with meta builds is talking about class knowledge, or limits. Class limits is very important, because with the meta builds, it also shows the class's weakness, because meta builds don't cover everything. They just cover a lot of things. And so we'll use the Mediguard, for example, because that's my main class. And we can talk about a little bit about the weaknesses and the limits of Mediguard. So the one big thing that Mediguard does have, it has a lot of damage, has a lot of, it has a bit of movement, because it has a teleport, it has some dash, some leaps and some range if you're using Scepter. And we're not going to go too deep into the class. I'm just going to talk about general overview of the build. And it has some Condi from the burning, intrinsically, that Guardian has. So those are the things going for it. It has a lot of damage, and just a lot of damage very quickly, and continuous too. The one thing it doesn't have is a lot of movement. You might think that a leap and a teleport are okay, but it just lacks a bit of movement. It's also very slow. So even if you have swiftness, you're going to be outplayed a lot by a thief or a mesmer. Even though thief is like your best class to fight, because you're the counter class to thief. It's still kind of annoying, because you're sitting there going, I can't really catch him, or this or that. Or mesmer is true, because they have stealth. Even sometimes ranger, because your range weapon is still not superior as a longbow. So there's still some things that are some weaknesses of the class. So you have to know those limits of your class so that you can kind of decide. Making decisions in the game is important, and with those limits, knowing those, you can make better decisions on what you should be doing in the match. So for instance, if you're playing Mediguard and you're up against a Mesmer, you should be saying, okay, I'm going up a Mesmer, probably Shatter because that's the meta build right now. And what should I be looking out for? I should be looking out for a lot of clones, a lot of illusions, a lot of phantasms, a lot of things when they're coming at me at once. So what do I do about that? All I could do is several things. I can use my heal to block it if I want to waste my heal on that, or if I want to use my elite to avoid damage, or if I can blind enough and block enough of everything to avoid a lot of damage, or if I can just heal through it with my meditations. And so knowing that you can do a lot of damage, but you can't take a lot of damage because Mediguard doesn't have a lot of defense. It only has healing. You're still susceptible to certain things. So even on Dagger Ellie, you still have some weaknesses, even though it seems to be the monster it is right now. There are still some weaknesses. You can't do very much at range. If you're being poked by a ranger, really not much you can do about it, unless you want to try to teleport up to him and fight him up front. Necromancers are still a bit of a problem because they can still, if it's a Terramancer, you're pretty fudged because if they get their full combo off on you, you still can't cleanse all the condies off, and you're feared forever. You only have one stud break. So that's just, knowing those class limits is important because, I'm going to say this many times, I'm going to repeat a lot of things I say because it's just to put it, just kind of grind it into brains, or just to let you know what I'm thinking. It's important to know these class limits because then you can, again, decision making is important in the match because if you make the wrong decision, you might just lose the game. The games move very quickly, and it might seem like a long time you're playing, but matches move pretty quickly. And so making a decision right on the spot can make or break. So class knowledge is also important because that's part of class limits. Knowing about your class is just as important as knowing what its weaknesses are. And so how do we know this? How do we figure out our class knowledge? How do we know more about my class? How do I know more about Mesmer if I play Mesmer, or Necromancer, or Guardian? How do I know more about that stuff? How do I learn my class? Well, again, like I said before in my first video, playing with people is the most important way, the best way. That's also the most important. That's also the best. 1v1ing is also a good thing, even though I said before a lot, and this is a really big thing, this game isn't 1v1 orientated, but 1v1ing is a very good way to learn your class. But please, 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 don't play a 1v1 build. It will not get you anywhere in the game. It will just hinder you and your team, because it's you being more selfish than you need to be. And there are selfish builds, Mediguard being one of them, but Mediguard benefits the team by doing a lot of damage and cleaving a lot. So don't play a 1v1 build and learn your class that way, because you should be playing the team builds. That way you can play with the team and do well. But 1v1 is a good way to learn, because then you're fighting against, you can not only learn about your class, but you kind of learn about other classes as well. You don't have to play all the classes to learn them. You can fight them and you can learn more about them. Even though you don't know the names of the skills, you can say, oh, that thing where he kind of moves from one place to the other, that's a teleport. So it kind of does that thing. Or that thing, it kind of makes him go invisible. That must be a stealth. Or that thing. And you can kind of see how the different flavors of classes by fighting them. So I hope this video has been informative to you. I'm kind of running out of time right now, so I'm going to end it right here. Please, again, do put feedback in the comments or message me in game. I really want to hear what you guys are thinking. I want to see if this gets people kind of digesting information more and talking between each other. Again, keep it constructive. I don't want trolls. I mean, if you're trolling, I mean, that's fine. You can do that. I'm just going to ignore you. But please do keep it constructive. I want people, this is a learning process we all have to go through. And again, also, if I'm missing anything, I mean, this is my first time doing this, and so I'm still kind of getting the hang of it. So if I miss anything, if I'm missing information, do please let me know, because then I'll make sure to talk about it in future videos. So, and please, I'm gonna say it many times, don't hesitate to message me in game, talk about things if you want to play with me a little bit. I would like blinking friends to play with, This is not, well, of course, this isn't an attempt to try to make friends. This is just me saying you can come play with me if you want. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please hit the subscribe button. It helps me a lot. Like it so this videos get seen by more people so we can get this information out. I want more people to talk about this because it's a very important concept, especially with Heart of Thorns coming out. We need to start making the community a better place. Making the community a better place, you know. Making it. I'm gonna make a future video about the community. Well, that's another video entirely. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys next time.